All right, what's good, everybody? Gonna have some fun tonight. Come on in. Let me know you're live in the chat. I've got some good stuff for you today, I think. Think you'll like it. All right, get on in here. What's going on, my dingas? Sorry, I'm laughing at my own joke. Okay. It is Tuesday. I thought it was Wednesday all day for some reason, but it's not. It's Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to another episode of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles, where we prefer what? We prefer truth over narrative and principles over personality. Now, before we get into anything, please like this video, please share this video, and please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to my channel. It's just it's like 3 clicks. 1 click for sharing, 1 click for liking, and 1 click for subscribing. Actually, 2 clicks for subscribing, because you got to hit that notification bell too. That way you'll be updated whenever I upload a new video or whenever I go live. Also, if you want to support my work, please join my online community at afreshperspective.locals.com, where you'll get premium content that other people don't get. It's only $5 per month, and you get the parts of me that other people don't see. Who wouldn't want that? Also, if you want to do a one-time donation, that also works. You can do so here. And you can also do super chats during the live stream here. If you have any burning questions that you want me to answer, or something that you really want to say, hit me with a super chat. It's all appreciated. It all helps. You guys are wonderful. And also, before we get started, just want to let you know that LibertyNation.com is a proud sponsor of A Fresh Perspective. Check out LibertyNation.com for all of your conservatarian news, original articles and analysis, videos, podcasts, Liberty Nation Radio, and their signature TV program, The Conservative 5. All on LibertyNation.com, conservative news where truth matters. Now, before we get started, hey, what's up, France? Nice to see you. It's been a little while. Let me take this off here. Okay, yeah, good. Now, I want to start off with a video that I kind of alluded to last Friday. I was thinking about doing a reaction over the weekend, but I decided I'd just make it a part of this live stream here. And this is an issue that it's annoying, but it's also destructive, in my opinion. It's indicative of the political climate that we're living in right now. And it's very indicative of how the left is framing things and how they are deceiving a lot of especially younger people, but also older as well, when it comes to voting rights and when it comes to election laws. There's a big debate over election laws being passed by Republican states like Texas. We saw the whole stunt that Texas Democrats pulled when they, fled the state and went to Washington, D.C. for a taxpayer-funded vacation under the guise of trying to safeguard voting rights, which are not in danger if you actually look at these laws. You can, even if you disagree with something, because there are areas where I disagree with it. There are areas where I don't think that they'll actually protect us from voter fraud. But at the same time, this is not Jim Crow 2.0 like they are claiming. This is not going to prevent people from voting, and it's especially not going to disproportionately impact the Black community. It's a whole lie that they're telling. And the way you know it is because they never actually give you the evidence. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I want to show you this video, and I'm going to react to it. And it's just, it shows how people will play on people's ignorance and their desire to be important and their desire to make a difference. And none of those desires are wrong, but it can make us more susceptible to being manipulated. So I'm just going to go ahead and run it here. Wrong one.
For voting rights. Right now, they're disenfranchising a whole lot of people right now. And at this point in time, it's been how many years? This happened in 1965, and we're still fighting for the same thing. Enough is enough.
Mainly because of the filibuster.
A whole lot of people right now. And at this point in time, it's been how many years? This happened in 1965, and we're still fighting for the same thing. Enough is enough.
I'm going to pause it right there. So you heard what she just said, right? This was going on in 1965, and we're still fighting for the same thing, right? She said that with a straight face. And I think that she's a true believer. I don't think she's lying. I think she actually believes this, that right now Black people are fighting for the same rights that we were fighting for back in the 60s. And we're fighting against the exact same forces that we were fighting against in the 1960s. Now, I think that most Democrats would acknowledge that that's not the case. But when you have the hard left out here pushing a narrative, and you get into the minds of these impressionable people, and I don't know how old she is. She might be older than I think, but still, she is being manipulated. And I'm taking her at her word. Again, I don't think she's lying, although I do think a lot of the high-profile leftist influencers, they know that what they're saying isn't true, but they're doing it anyway because conjuring Jim Crow plays on people's emotions, because especially Black people, we take that stuff very seriously. Now, obviously, the ones who are using it don't take it seriously because they wouldn't be exploiting it if they did. But it's very telling that she can look somebody straight in the face and without any sense of irony insinuate that Black people are fighting for the same rights that we were back in the Jim Crow days. There were far more many obstacles that were specifically designed to keep Black people from voting and participating in our democratic process. And today, those don't exist. I'm not saying that there aren't racial issues in our government and in our systems. I do believe that there is to a certain extent, but this ain't it. let's keep going.
Mainly because of the filibuster.
We're out here for reparations. We're out here for voting rights. We're out here for minimum wage, a thriving living wage. And if we're not out here fighting and disrupting civil disobedience, who else is going to do it?
Okay, so she says we're out here fighting for reparations. Okay, now that's something that we don't have. So whether you agree with reparations or not, that makes sense. I mean, they're out there demonstrating for reparations. People have the right to do that. I don't care. I don't care if people protest, even if I don't agree with them. They should be making their arguments known. She said she reiterated that we're fighting for the right to vote. And I'm pretty sure that this person votes. If I were to ask her what is preventing you from voting, she's not going to have an answer, because the bottom line is that there's nothing really preventing her from voting. She also said we're protesting for living minimum wage. Now, depending on what number you put that at, she might be right in the assumption that we don't have what they want us to have. So right now we don't have a $15 minimum wage. So she's fighting for that. There's a host of issues that come with that. And that's not really what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the notion that this is somehow equivalent to what Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King and the rest of the civil rights movement was fighting for. They were fighting for something a lot more than what we've got going on right now. And as a matter of fact, we are standing on their shoulders. They accomplished their work. Now, because I don't believe that MLK's intent was to eliminate racism. I think he knew that couldn't happen. And I think he knew that the advances that he foresaw that we were going to make, he wasn't going to be around to see it. Same with Malcolm X. But we are not living under the same conditions that Black people were in the 60s and before. Hell, not even the 70s or 80s. We have progressed since then. So the notion that these folks are anything like Malcolm X or the Black Panthers or other activist groups that fought for equality is absurd. It diminishes their work. It diminishes what MLK did, what Malcolm X did, what the rest of them did. Hell, John Lewis, it diminishes what he did. I'll give him credit. I don't care that he was a Democrat. It's absurd. But actually, let me go ahead and let the video finish, and then I'll get more into that.
We did right. One day we gotta fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
All right, so it was a very short video. I did like the singing though. They got some good voices. Black people can sing. I just happen to be the only one that can't. Well, me and Bismarck. So here's the thing. She is not alone in these sentiments. I've seen people post stuff like this on Twitter. I've seen people make these types of statements. I don't think it's most people on the left. I think most Black people, young, middle-aged, or old, understand that we are not in the same situations as those who came before us. But here's the thing. When it comes to younger people, or even middle-aged, people want to feel important. If you ever read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, keyword influence, you have to recognize that everybody wants to feel important. And if you want to win people over, you have to make them feel important. Now, in his book, he was talking about positive ways to do that, right? Because you want to befriend people, you want to be able to help people, and you want to be able to form relationships. But the reality that we all want to feel important could be very easily abused by nefarious actors. This isn't just on the left. This is outside of politics in reality. I mean, if you're just a regular con man, you might play on people's need to feel appreciated or important to get what you want. And that can also be used in a good way. I mean, if you're in sales and you're trying to sell something, you need to make your prospect feel like they're important to you, because if they get any inkling that you don't hold them in high regard, that you think enough of them to want to help them, they're going to go with the guy that does. Politicians work the exact same way. One of the reasons why Trump was able to win voters that Republicans had trouble with, white uneducated voters in places like Pennsylvania and other states, he made them feel important. He said, I see you and I want to help you. So this can be used for good. It can be used for bad. One thing that people say about Bill Clinton, the reason why he was so likable is because when you had a one-on-one conversation with him, he made you feel like you were the only person in the room. The same, I believe, was also said for Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli of England. Great politicians have that skill. They can make you feel like you are the most important thing to them. So I say all of that to illustrate how the hard left is manipulating a lot of young people. They want to go out there and they want to make a difference. And if you're a Black young woman or a young Black man, and you see the plight of too many Black Americans, you see the racial disparities in education, income, wealth, and other areas, you want to do something about that. So by using this whole Jim Crow 2.0 narrative that was even promoted by the President of the United States, a lot of these people are susceptible to that kind of thinking. They want to feel, MLK did such great things. What am I doing? I want to do great things too. So I'm going to take up this battle. I'm going to fight for voting rights or what have you. The problem is that motivation is a good thing, but it's being channeled in the wrong direction. And is being channeled in a way that is not constructive. Trying to convince people that essentially what MLK and Malcolm X fought for hasn't materialized, or that they weren't even able to make progress, that's dangerous. Because regardless of what MLK and Malcolm X did, they did move the needle forward. The civil rights movement did move the needle forward. We're not living under Jim Crow anymore. I can eat at whatever restaurant I want. And now I don't even have to wear a mask. I mean, it's great. But the notion is that we have to recognize what we're up against here. These are not bad people. I'm sure that lady is a very nice person. She obviously is, because she cares. She wants better for her people. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you see people get deceived in this way, you have to watch out for it, especially with the younger generation. I mean, I always talk about how the Republican Party has such a difficulty reaching young voters. Well, guess what? If the GOP doesn't get its shit together, this is what we're going to have to deal with. We're going to have to deal with a generation of deceived people. Now, I'm sure that a lot of these people at some point will realize that they've been lied to. But how many won't? And of the ones that do, how many will actually try to dig deeper and figure out what the truth is? I have no idea, but probably not many. Especially since people typically want to resist the idea that they've been deceived. They don't want to have to acknowledge that they've been conned. And they have been conned. They've been fooled. They've been bamboozled. All that stuff. And it's a game that the left plays really well. If the conservative movement doesn't start taking it's not just about black voters. You know, I talk about that a lot. But if the conservative movement does not take the younger voters seriously, black, white, and otherwise, it's not gonna be looking good for us over the next few decades. And I know a lot of people, I mean, actually on the Conservative 5 on Liberty Nation, last week we were talking about this. And sometimes people will assume, well, as they get older, they'll get more conservative. Yes, that does happen. But we can't count on that to change things. I mean, because there'll be a few of these folks who end up becoming more conservative. But again, millennials are only like, at the oldest, they're only 2 years younger than me. I'm not old. But they're already paying taxes. They're already employed. They already know what it's like to have the government take their money. And guess who they're still voting for? Not us, not conservatives. They're voting Democrat. So maybe when they get older, they might become more conservative. But we can't count on that. We have to influence. We have to get in this game. There is no reason why conservatives should be losing young voters like that. The problem, as you've heard me say a billion times, the issue isn't just that young people might be more susceptible to socialist ideas. That's part of it. And we also have to take into account the fact that when they're going to universities, most of their professors are left-leaning. Even if they're not like the wacky socialist types, they're still left-leaning. When I was in college, I mean, I may have had a few teachers who were like way on that side, but the ones who weren't, they were still leaning towards the left. So we have to contend with that. But the issue is that conservatives are not selling their values. They're spending more time complaining about the left than they are about what we stand for. We got to be known more for what we're for than what we're against. The more we start to get that, the better chance we will have of being able to win over the younger generation, because we have to do it. The conservative movement doesn't have a choice. It's at a crossroads right now. We all know this. There's a civil war going on the right, and it's a civil war that needs to happen, and it's needed to happen for decades. We can either go for a bigger tent instead of just pretending we have a bigger tent, because we don't right now. And it's okay to say that. There's a reason why the GOP is known as a party of old white men. Well, who dominates the GOP? Doesn't mean that there aren't other races, especially among the rank and file. But as far as our leadership goes, not a lot of different types of people are represented right now. And we've got to change that. I think that as time goes on, it can change and will change, but we are at that crossroads. We can either do what we've been doing for the past few decades and fail, or we can reform. We can switch it up. We can flip the script. If we don't change, we will die. I mean, I mean that quite literally. I don't mean that we're all going to keel over and die. I mean that the movement is going to die. It's not going to be relevant anymore because we're not able to influence. And right now is the prime time, because we're actually doing better than it seems like. The left has a lot of influence, but they don't have as much as we give them credit for. We give them way too much credit. If you think about it, they're pushing stuff that nobody likes. So they're not as well as they should be. We need to fix this. I mean, we need to pressure our leaders to take this more seriously. The more of us who do this, the more likely it is that it will happen. Or for the ones who want to be obstinate, get them out. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not just talking about in Congress. I'm talking about in the RNC, the Republican National Committee, the leadership of the conservative movement. We need to evolve, and it's time for that to happen right now. I think I'm trying to be white-pilled about this. I do think that there's a very good chance of that happening, but it won't happen if we're not engaged. So what do you guys think? Oh, you guys had a lot to say. Let's see. Hey, welcome back, The Alchemist. Donique, demonstrations make you feel good. Yeah, it does. And it's because of what I mentioned earlier. It feels good to be important, doesn't it? It's one of the reasons why it feels good when we help somebody because we were important. Hey Jeff, you got me watching Titans. Good. I'm loving it. I'm loving that show. I might even do a whole video on that when I get caught up. I'm still on the first season, I think. But so don't spoil anything for me. But I think I mean, people were bashing it, but I'm like, what's so bad about this? I'm liking it so far. I don't know if it gets worse, but I think that they've done a pretty good job. Okay, you got me digressing over here. All right, I got to do a whole thing on this. um, let's see. While there is some merit to the voting rights issue, people are beginning to understand that it's all performative. Yes, it is. You know, the whole debate over elections, this might be controversial, but I think on both sides, it is very much political theater. It is. I think that after the 2020 election, when we did see that there was funny business going on, because I've never denied that, I think Republicans were under pressure to do something, or they might risk alienating their constituents. So they passed these laws. I don't think that they're all bad. I think that some of the measures I've read, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then some of the stuff that they're rolling back, I'm like, why? There's no point to that. No, it's not going to keep people from voting. But at the same time, that's probably not going to address voter fraud, and it's going to make it harder for people to vote. I mean, why not just leave it in there? There are areas like that, and I can take that on a case-by-case basis, but it just seems it is very performative. And then on the left, you have the people pretending that this is Jim Crow. You actually have them trying to convince people that they're going to prevent Black people from voting. Literally. Like I was on a radio show earlier today, a Black radio show, which is good because I want to do more Black media. And it was a friend of mine, Dominique. She's great lady. I put the link in my Twitter. We had a very good conversation. She had me on for the whole hour. And this topic didn't really come up, but I listened to it after I was off. And some of the callers, they really think that if this For the People Act doesn't pass, that Black people won't be able to vote. They truly believe that. But they also believe that during the whole kerfuffle over voter ID, which had been going on for like a decade or so. They really think that if states have voter ID laws, that Black people won't be able to vote. Well, guess what? I don't think anybody believes that anymore. I mean, the Democrats are low-key trying to inject that back into the conversation, but I think it's pretty much settled. The vast majority of Black people prefer voter IDs when they go and vote. So the Democrats lost that battle. Same thing is going to happen here, which is actually the reason why they're pushing this Jim Crow 2.0 is because they lost the voter ID battle. And you'll notice because they don't talk about it as much anymore. And some of them are even saying, oh, no, we were never against voter IDs. You know, Representative James Clyburn tried to walk that back, tried to clean that up. Nah, dinga, you were against voter IDs. Don't try to clean that up. And there were some others too. So it is performative. It is a lie. And if Republicans had their messaging on point better, they would be able to say, Black community, guess what? You're being lied to. Have you noticed how they don't actually prove what they're saying? But Black people don't trust the Republican Party because you know why. You already know where I'm going with that. Let's see. She needs to be working instead of begging. Okay, how do you know she doesn't have a job? Maybe she works at night. I don't know. Or maybe she's a full-time activist. I don't know. I don't care. Donique, we literally have everything they fought for. Everything. Yeah, pretty much. It does mean that there aren't still issues, but as far as the rights go, as far as getting rid of Jim Crow, yeah. It's okay to acknowledge the good while still working against the bad. It's amazing that people can't see this. It has to be either one or the other. America is near perfect, or America is the worst country that ever existed. It's absurd. And again, it's these fringe actors, the fringes on both sides, who push these narratives. I think most Americans fall somewhere in the middle. They may lean one way or another, but most Americans can understand that concept of acknowledging the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, Biz Markie. Although I will say I probably sing better than Biz Markie. I mean, that was pretty horrible. Yeah. The demonstrators are young and impressionable. Where are the elders to teach them what inequality looked like in the 1960s? Really, I don't think that they get any play. They don't get the microphone, because I'm sure there are plenty of elders who would sit them down and say, yeah, you know what? We still have a ways to go. We still need to address inequality in the system, but y'all aren't MLK, okay? We're not in the same situation. So let's keep moving forward, right? Mrs. Pinky, thank you for the super chat, Mrs. Pinky. And yes, it is facts. Everything I say is facts. Even the stuff that isn't true, those are facts too. Racer Dave, agitators never want this to go away. Hit the nail on the head. The people pushing the stuff don't want it to go away. And I'm going to talk about this on my audio podcast, but the so-called progressive movement pours more resources into making it look like they're doing something when they're really not. The bottom line is they don't want this to go away, like you just said. Remember, on the hard left, they love racism. They love inequality. They don't see, as I say this all the time, the hard left, by and large, in the chattering and influencer class, they don't see racism as a societal ill to be fought. They see it as a political weapon to be exploited. Nothing more, nothing less. They love racism like a cowboy loves his gun, because it's a weapon that they can use against people that they don't like in order to obtain the power that they want. What else we got? Yeah, so many people feel like they are involved in the modern day version of the civil rights movement, and they're just not. And I think a lot of that actually is coming from the murder of George Floyd too. I mean, that really ignited a passion in a lot of people that may not be way far to the left, but enough to where they're like, okay, we can go out there and march. We can protest peacefully. When you're part of a peaceful protest, you feel like you're doing something. And I get it, because I've been to protests. I haven't ever protested myself. It's not really my thing, but I've been to protests where I watch and see what's going on. I'll live stream it, write about it later. And yeah, these people have a sense of purpose, and that is very important. Everybody needs that sense of purpose, and that can be the linchpin that can be used to steer somebody in a direction that may not be good for them. Let's see. Gary FC1, conservatives need to be more inclusive. They need to rebrand, consider Freedom Party. I've heard the name Freedom Party, but I don't know anything about it. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, you're right. Conservatives do need to be more inclusive. Yeah, blend libertarian thought with conservative values. The cool thing is that I'm already seeing that happening. I mean, over the past few years, I've seen Republicans become more libertarian on several issues. So I think that's a welcome change. I know some of the more traditional types and the graper types, they don't like that. They prefer more the right-wing authoritarian style. But that's not what conservatism was ever supposed to be. That's not what the Republican Party was ever supposed to be. Let's see. Racer Dave, good point. It's beyond Trump. He isn't the answer. We are the answer. Yeah. Trump was in office because of us, because people got sick of the establishment. Is it time for conservatives to leave Trump behind? I don't think the movement can move forward with Trump leading it. I don't think that we need to leave Trump behind. I just think maybe his role has already been redefined. And people do say he's the leader of the party. I don't see that as much. I mean, he is, but he's like low key the leader. Like, he's the most influential person on the right now. But I don't see him actively out there leading the party, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm saying that the right way. He is the most prominent Republican, the most influential on the right. He has more influence than pretty much anybody else on the right. But what I'm starting to see is more people like him rising up. And this is exactly what I expected to see. Like a while ago, I did a live stream on how, in 2024, when we're looking at the Republican field, if Trump doesn't run, we're going to be seeing a field of Trumps. And I think that they will be upgrades. Like Ron DeSantis is seen as an upgrade to Trump because he has all of Trump's strengths and he doesn't have his weaknesses. So in that sense, I think more of the America First or non-establishment or MAGA or whatever you want to call it, that is what's leading the movement. So I don't think we need to leave Trump behind. But I do think that his role is different. And I think it's already different. And honestly, I kind of think he's liking it. Like, I really don't think he's going to run again. I hope he doesn't. And a lot of people do, even though they like him. But being in a role where he's more influential. And the thing is, this is going to become more important as the midterms get closer. Right now, he's active, but I think he's going to get a lot more active next year. You're going to see a lot from him. He will be back on social media in some form. He's really doing those press releases, but I think he will be back on a social media platform, and he's really going to kick it into high gear, especially when it comes to targeting the establishment crowd, who frankly was against him. So I'm sure some of this has to do with his ego, but still, I think he's going to be driving a lot of thought on the right. Man, you guys got me talking a lot about stuff that I wasn't planning to, but this is good. This is good. Let's see. Aaron F., the GOP has just lost 10% of their base that will never vote again because they refused to audit the irregularities in the last election. I don't buy it. I think that percentage probably exists, but it's not 10%. They'll vote again. They'll come back out. When the Democrats continue to threaten what they hold dear, yeah, they're going to vote again. And I tweeted earlier today, I think there is a small cadre of people who, if they become influential, they'll hold us back because all they want to focus on is 2020. And they use this to say that now all elections are rigged. Like when I say something like, okay, this is what the Republican Party needs to do. The Democrats are making mistakes. We need to capitalize on that. And in some ways they are and they aren't. All they say, well, none of that matters because they're just going to cheat and we're going to lose anyway. No, that kind of thinking is why we don't have the Senate right now. You can believe what you want about let's say I fully believe that the election was stolen. That does not automatically mean that every single race is going to be rigged. I mean, look at the gains we made in the House. Look at the gains that we made at the state and local level. Those weren't rigged. So even if I were to go with that narrative, you're talking about one election. These people actually will contend that we'll never win a presidential election again. Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. And I think it will be in 2024. And even if it's not, it will happen. What happened in 2020 is not happening all across the country. It just isn't. So we can't let that hold us back. We can't let that sap away at our resolve. We need to be in this to win it. And that kind of thinking is it's just going to hold us back. I get the concerns. I get why they're concerned, even though I don't agree with them. But at the same time, we got to look forward instead of fixating on 2020, because we can only do that for so long, right? The Democrats are essentially giving the Republican Party at least the House back in 2022. They're not losing it. They're putting it on a platter. They're making it look really nice. They're putting some garnishes on it. They're putting that top on it, and they're going to the Republicans and say, here's the House. I'm telling you, they're being so stupid right now that the Republicans would have to be even dumber to not win. Let's see. Scott Messick, Republican in modern terms is not necessarily conservative. Yep. That's why the term rhino has no meaning. Because these days, if you're a conservative, you pretty much are a rhino, because a lot of Republicans are not conservative. Let's see. Oh, wait, where'd you go? Gerardo, who's a young Republican that could possibly be the future of the GOP, like Obama for the Democrats in 2008? I think it's going to be somebody that we don't know about yet. People point to DeSantis. Whether he wins the nomination or not, I don't think it's him. He does have charisma, but he's not. Like you said, Obama for Democrats. DeSantis does not have Obama level charisma. Trump did, but DeSantis doesn't have that. Doesn't mean he's not going to be a strong contender. Doesn't mean he won't win the nomination. I think he probably will. But people who can really rile people up, I'm not sure that we've seen this person yet. Or if we do, we don't know who he is. Or she. I'm being sexist. He or she, my bad. Don't tell the woke people. I don't want to have punishment. Let's see. We will if the For the People Act never passes. I don't think it's going to pass, honestly. I don't think people want that. Yeah, I'd still vote with a little side eye. I've been suspicious of all elections since the 86 JFK. That's reasonable. I can see how that would be the case. Yeah, and I do think that a lot of those people are still going to vote. And like you just said, they'll vote with a side eye, but they will be voting. Let's see. All right. Man, I spent half an hour just on that first topic. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. And we'll probably talk about this again because there's a lot there. But before I go forward, I want to remind you to head on over to libertynation.com, a proud sponsor of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles. You can sign up for the daily briefing, which you'll get in your email every morning and I believe every afternoon. I get it. It's awesome. You can also subscribe to the Member Zone to get premium content. You can also just browse through the articles that are there. As a matter of fact, the article that I'm going to go into right now is from libertynation.com. Very nuanced content. Again, you're not going to get the outrage porn. You're not going to get a lot of the radical hyperbolic spin. We can be snarky, definitely sarcastic, but it's not going to be like reading, propaganda or anything like that. So check out new and original material on libertynation.com, conservative news where truth matters. Now, I want to talk about the vaccination. We've been hearing a lot about this vaccination. And I do want to play another video. And I just want to make fun of it really quick. It doesn't have as much to do with what I'm going to talk about, but you guys need to see this. It's absurd. So I'm going to put this video up. And I'm just going to, I'll just play it. It's just, yeah.
Was screeching halt. You have to understand, I'm a hustler. I'm a legit entrepreneur. I sell things. Coming to a screeching halt. You have to understand, I'm a hustler. I'm a legit entrepreneur. I sell things. I come in contact with people all the time. I have to stay safe. I didn't have a choice but to trust the vaccine. And if you live the type of lifestyle that I live, you out here in these streets and you hustling, an entrepreneur like me, why not do it safely? So I want everybody to take this seriously. Take a shot at staying healthy. Get the vaccine.
Okay. And my friend Darvio sent me that. That was a video that was created by the state of Arkansas to convince Black people to get the vax. And it is the most racist shit I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why this dude agreed to do this video. I mean, I get actors need money, they got to get paid. I respect that. But that is some prime time, you heard what he said, right? I don't know if the video was clipping or not, but he said he was, he needs the vax because he's out there in the streets hustling. He's selling product in the streets. He's selling product in the streets. He's out there hustling because he's selling product in the streets. What the hell do you think they're trying to imply here? Oh, what? Yeah. Drug dealers need the vax too. Yeah. Black people who all sell drugs on the street. You guys need to get the vax so that when you're out there selling your rocks and your weed and your meth or whatever you're selling, then you won't get the COVID. Don't get the COVID if you're a drug dealer. I can't believe how tone deaf this is. This is one of those situations. I guarantee you this is what happened. They were in the room trying to be creative and think of an ad that would be persuasive enough to get Black people who are hesitant to take the vax to agree to get the jab. And somebody says, I know, I have a script here. We can get a Black guy, put him on camera, and talk about how he's out in the streets and how he's selling product and how he needs vax to do that, because that will relate to that urban demographic. This is how we're going to appeal to the Blacks, okay? That's what happened here. And what was missing from that equation is there wasn't a single Black person in that room. I guarantee you there was no Black person in that room. None. They didn't even have a Latino in the room. It was all just lily white, and they just came up with this idea because they were out of touch, probably haven't even talked to a black person, and they came up with this stupid idea. It's the same thing like when those companies were making those shirts, or they were making like there was like a hood or hoodie or a face mask that resembled a monkey or resembled like one of those minstrel show cartoons from back in the day. Yeah, they didn't have a black person in the room when they thought of that either. So this isn't just a conservative thing, because progressives do it too, and it's cringe. Why would they do this? All right, Scott, I get your point. Honestly, I saw it as gratuitous, but did not connect to a drug angle. That said, I am an aged boomer. Scott, I guarantee you that's what they were doing. Either that, or they were just so clueless that they didn't realize how this would come off. But anybody, especially a black person, is going to see that video and be like, "What the heck? Wait, no, we're not all drug dealers." So I'm not necessarily saying that they meant to do that, although that's very possible, because I mean, we do live in an age of stupid. But at the same time, that's why I say there wasn't a black person in the room, because a black person would have been able to say, he would have read that script and be like, "No, you guys got to change this. You got to change this. This is not going to work. You are going to alienate these people because of this racist ad that you're putting out there." All right. Yes, you are a bad racist. You need to step up your racist game, like expediently. Like, this is unacceptable. You need to get better at being a racist. Yeah, Arnold, it was way too obvious. It was. And again, I'm not saying that they meant to do this, although I wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, I think it was just a matter of ignorance, right? They didn't know what they were saying. But they're trying to do all these things to get black people to get the jab, and we're just not having it. I think it's like 26% of us have actually taken the shot. I have. I'm not against it. I think it should be a personal decision. But I mean, there was one story that I might talk about later this week or next week, where an Ohio judge made it a condition of this a young black man, his parole, made it a condition that he had to go take the vaccine within 2 months, or he would go back to prison as a condition of his parole. So I'm like, okay, yeah, if you threaten to lock dingas up because they don't take the jab, that might work, but I kind of think that might be a little bit unconstitutional. I think he might be violating his rights. But I digress. I'm going to look forward to that one, to keeping up with it, to see how that works out. But what I really want to talk about is vaccine hesitancy. And that's why I wanted to show the video, because like I said, a lot of black people are hesitant, but black people are not the only ones who are iffy on this whole vaccine thing. And the article that I'm going to read from, again, it's on libertynation.com. I put the link in the show notes, and it's written by Lisa Donner, the head honcho of Liberty Nation, my boss, and also happens to be an excellent writer, of course. So I'm going to be quoting from her article, which is about vaccine hesitancy, but it was very surprising to me because it seems to suggest that vaccine hesitancy is on the decline, that people are becoming more willing to take the jab than they were previously. And there's a few different factors that could potentially play into this, and she lays a lot of those out. So give me just a second. Sorry, my throat gets dry. Okay. So after explaining how there's starting to be a steady decline in people being afraid to take the vaccination, she writes, quote, "There may be several underlying reasons for this, but it is an observable trend that must be noted. Could it be the rapid spread of the highly contagious variant Delta, which shows a staggering majority of those hospitalized were not vaccinated? Might it be the low breakthrough rate of those already inoculated? Or could it be that those who were not initially down with injecting a non-FDA approved fluid into their bodies have been quietly saying, quote, 'You first'? Very interesting questions. I will tell you right now, the reason why I didn't take it at the beginning, I mean, I got mine in May, so sooner than a lot of people, but that was my attitude. You first. Let's see what happens when people take it. And I understand that there might be some long-term effects of taking the vaccine that we're not aware of yet, but still, I didn't want to take it right away. And I think that she's onto something there. I think a lot of people are saying, okay, enough, like half the population has been vaccinated. Maybe I can go out and go ahead and take the shot. It also might be all of the other reasons she said as well. It could be that people are like, okay, I don't know about this vaccine, but that Delta variant, I don't want to have to bother with that. Even though people know that if you get it, you could easily be asymptomatic. It has been shown that the vaccine will ensure that, at least in most cases, the vast majority of cases, that you will not experience the severe symptoms as somebody who hasn't taken the inoculation. So I think that the breakthrough rate could have also been a factor in this as well. I don't think that anybody's under the illusion that you most definitely will not get the virus if you have the vaccine, because that's been shown. But people can reasonably assume that if they do get it, having the vaccination will be better for them than if they didn't have it. And I think that's the choice people are weighing. Is it more of a risk to take the vaccine, or is it more of a risk to risk getting COVID-19? And that's different depending on who you are and what your health situation is, your age, your lifestyle, all of those things. So the article continues, quote, graphics depicting the number of vaccinations per month show a slow start in February and March as Americans took a cautious approach to the shot. But a glance at August reveals minds are changing. Gotta love that Bob Dylan reference. It cannot be ignored that increasing numbers are feeling a bit more confident about getting the shot as the summer of 2021 winds down. Perhaps anti-vax Americans feel the jab is now the lesser of two evils. Great point. And that's what I think is happening. I didn't realize that vaccine hesitancy was going down, but when I first saw the article, I was like, yeah, so I'm thinking people are actually making this decision based on their situation. They're talking to their doctors. People aren't down with the whole mandatory vaccine thing. I talked about that previously. There was a poll that came out over the past couple of weeks that showed that the vast majority of Americans, and this includes a majority of Republicans and a majority of Democrats, believe that taking the vaccination should be a matter of personal choice. It should not be mandated. So New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is doing something that probably most of the residents of his city don't want, by requiring proof of vaccination to go to a restaurant or to a store. Now, about 50% of the population has been fully vaccinated. They took both doses, according to the CDC. Almost 2 million, or 59% of the population, have taken at least one dose. So most of the population has taken at least some form of the inoculation. Now, she also writes, quote, of course, there have been adverse reactions to each of the vaccination options. As well, breakthrough cases of vaccinated people contracting COVID have been reported. Everyone seems to know someone who fits into one of these two categories. Still, exceptions are not the rule. Examining the macro picture of undesirable reactions, one must recognize the percentages of both these legitimate concerns are proving to be statistically negligible. For sure, these fractions do not predict how the vaccine will sit in the body in the future. It is merely a snapshot of where we are today. So it is, like I was saying, it's clear that if you take the vax, you're going to be fine, at least in the short term. We don't know what the long-term issues are. But realistically, if you take it, you're going to be fine. The COVID virus in general, among the unvaccinated, it still has a very high survival rate. It's rare that people die from it. So at the end of the day, my takeaway is what it's always been. Make your own damn decision and don't let anybody tell you what to do. Talk to your doctor. I talked to mine. And if you feel like that's the right thing to do, if you feel like you need to be inoculated, then get the jab. If you feel like you're healthy enough, then don't take it. Don't get it. If you feel like it's more of a risk to get the jab, then don't get the jab. The fact that most Americans agree with what I just said shows that maybe we're not as far gone as we think we are. I mean, we're not so far gone that we're willing to accept such authoritarian measures. And of course, that differs depending on who you're talking about. But most people think that this should be a personal choice, that you use your own brain and you make your decision. And I've said it before, the people using fear on both sides get on my nerves. I've got nothing but contempt for that. Like, the people who want you to think you're going to die if you take the vax are every bit as bad as the people on the left who are fear mongering about COVID. You're not just going to automatically die because you took the vax, and you're not just automatically going to die because you get COVID. It's better than to not get it, right? So you do take precautions. If you're in an area that has a high transmission rate, then consider wearing a mask. Or if you don't want to, then don't go to places that require masks or that don't require masks. Now, I know that in some states that's not possible, but here in Texas, you can. So a business can require masks. And you know what? If I don't want to go there, I don't have to. I have that freedom. People can figure this stuff out for themselves. What do you guys think? I mean, I do think it's very interesting that it is going down. The hesitancy is going down. There are going to be people who just choose not to take it. And I don't know if the hesitancy will go down in the Black community. I mean, Black people just don't trust the government like that. Can't blame us, but yeah. Let's see what else we got. The CDC stopped tracking breakthrough cases in May. Why? Is that true? I mean, because I've been hearing about them recently. I've been hearing data about them. But I don't know. I don't follow this issue closely. I just kind of get the highlights because I kind of got sick of it last year. But I do kind of keep up with generally what's going on. Folks are getting around taking the vaccine. They are selling those CDC cards with fake vaccine info. I heard about that. You know, it's also funny. I heard about kids faking COVID tests to make it seem like they have COVID when they really don't, so they don't have to go to school. Apparently, with these home tests, you can use soda or juice and put them in your. I don't know how they do it, but it causes the test to give you a positive result. That way, they can stay home and play. You know, they can play PlayStation all day. I mean, I got to give them credit for figuring that out. I mean, that's kind of brilliant. Let's see. If the government would back off the mandate, I believe that more people would be willing to take the vax. You know, I mean, if you think about psychology, especially American psychology, we don't like being told what to do. We do not like being told what to do. And I agree with that. I think if the government wasn't being so preachy, if Biden wasn't scolding us about it all the time, if they weren't saying we're going to force you to do that, I think more people would take it. If you come at somebody the right way and say, look, man, this is what's going on. This is what the information we have. It's your decision, but here's why we think you should take it. I respect you if you don't. You attract way more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Now, I never understood that analogy because why would somebody want to catch flies to begin with? But it still makes sense. So, yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think if they weren't being so douchey about it, for lack of a better term, then they would be able to persuade much easier. And it kind of surprises me because Democrats are usually good at messaging and persuasion. But yeah, not in this case. For France, mandates is what I don't like. Yeah, nobody likes a mandate idea. They don't like mask mandates. They don't like vaccine mandates. Yeah, Ray, Dave, the carrot versus the stick. Yep, you're right. So let me go on to the next thing here. This one I thought was pretty interesting. And it concerns free speech, one of our favorite topics. Now, the article that I'm reading here is from the National Review. And the author points out something very interesting in how issues of free speech are being treated by the hard left. Now, some of you might remember this story. Last year, I was one of the people who wrote about it. And you might remember the situation in DC where two young pro-life activists were arrested, again, by Washington, D.C. police, because they were using temporary paint that would wash off to paint pro-life slogans in front of an abortion clinic. Now, not on the abortion clinic, not on their property, but on the sidewalk in front of it. Now, he brings this up and then contrasts that with the treatment of people who wanted to paint murals in the street on buildings for Black Lives Matter during the protests. The author writes, quote, "Many Washington officials, including Mayor Muriel Bowser, were happy to throw verbal gasoline on the fires, allowing, encouraging, and endorsing BLM commotions and turbulence throughout the city, including the designation of a Black Lives Matter plaza in front of the White House, the commissioning of a mural celebrating Black Lives Matter, and permitting defund the police messages and graffiti on major streets." So not only did they allow people to paint or draw left-wing messages, they encouraged it. They cheered it. And to a certain extent, they even funded it. Now, in general, if they're allowing this to happen, it doesn't bother me. People, I mean, if they want to allow people to express their views, fine. I'm always for free speech. I do have a problem. See, I'm about to get into another tangent. This will be quick. I do have a problem with the whole Black Lives Matter mural thing, especially the one in front of the White House. Not because I don't think that people should be able to do it, but because I know what progressives are doing with this. Like I said at the beginning, progressives are very good at making it look like they care and making it look like they want to solve a problem without actually doing a damn thing. So yeah, they were pumping up these murals all across the country. You had these murals, and you had these mayors and city council members coming out and say, "Yes, defund the police. Yeah, let's paint that mural. Let's paint a mural for George Floyd and all that." And behind the closed doors, they're like, "Yeah, and that's all we're gonna do. We ain't doing shit for you. We'll paint you some murals. We'll let you draw them. Go out there and draw. Go draw and write some slogans. But we're not gonna actually do anything about police brutality." Right? That's what they do. Because if the problem's solved, then they're out of a job, or they have to look at another problem that needs to be solved. That's why I don't like these murals. The murals themselves, I'm okay with. I mean, I know a lot of conservatives aren't. That's a whole different conversation. But even the ones that I don't agree with, I'm okay with putting them up. But what I'm not okay with is allowing these to be put up. But then if somebody wants to put a message that does not comport with that is not Democrat approved, and when I say Democrat approved, I mean it lines up with their woke theology, then now we got a problem. Now they have a problem, and that is absurd. So again, this story, these were activists with pro-life advocacy groups called the Frederick Douglass Foundation, and also Students for Life of America. And they wanted to hold a street painting and a sidewalk chalking event in front of the DC offices of Planned Parenthood. Now, they had done chalk messages at that location many times before. But this time, according to the article, the Washington, D.C. officials didn't respond to the request to allow them to do this. They were going to write something to the effect of Black preborn lives matter, because as you know, the left loves to market abortion to Black mothers so that they'll abort their Black children because they don't want the Black population to grow as much. And yes, I do think it's on purpose. I do think these people are racist as hell. I do. I'll just say it. Because instead of focusing that energy on saying, let's deal with the economic conditions that would even prompt a Black mother to consider abortion in the first place, they're like, no, let's just make sure that as many Planned Parenthood centers are available in Black communities as possible. See it here in Austin, East Austin. I think there's like 2 of them, at least one. I've driven by it many times. So these people wanted to push back on that narrative. And even though the officials didn't respond to the request, a Metropolitan Police officer gave them verbal permission to go ahead and write a message with tempera paint. I guess that's temporary paint. It can wash off. So the author writes, quote, "That being the case, and the communication precedents set by BLM now established, the organizations moved ahead with their plan." So what he's saying is that these organizations basically approach this in the same way that Black Lives Matter does, and they got verbal permission from a police officer. But that's where things start to go south. So the author writes, quote, "But when the young people arrived early on the morning of August 1st, 2020, they found other law enforcement officers waiting for them. The officers said they would arrest anyone painting or even chalking a message on a public street or sidewalk." The article continues, quote, "2 of the young people, well acquainted with the First Amendment, proceeded with their chalking. They only managed the first 2 or 3 letters of their intended message, again, which is Black Preborn Lives Matter, before being arrested." And there was even footage of this. So when they got there, they pretty much figured out, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get arrested. And they did it anyway, which should be their right. Again, they weren't vandalizing anything. And it wasn't on private property. It was on public property. So what the government of DC is doing is saying, essentially, if you want to write a message that we don't like, we're going to have you arrested. But if you want to write defund the police or ACAB or, Black Lives Matter, we're perfectly fine with that. We're not going to punish you because we agree with your politics on that. Now, both of these organizations have filed lawsuits against the city, and they're asserting that their free speech has been, the right to free speech has been infringed, which it has. And the city is pushing back by saying that, by trying to get the case dismissed. And so a judge is considering that. I'm not optimistic about this. I wish I could be. I hope I'm wrong. But this is you know what DC is. It's a very leftist area of the country. So they are more okay with this type of authoritarianism. And I brought this up to talk about how the left feels about free speech. We already know this, but to see this exercised by a local government should be troubling, because if DC can do this, if you happen to live in a major city like I do, the local government can easily pick and choose who gets to speak. They can pick and choose what messages are allowed to be used on government property. My thing is, if it should be consistent. If you don't want certain speech, then don't let people write any messages. I would actually prefer to just say, let people write what they want, especially if it washes off. Let people express their views. But we know the hard left does not believe in that principle. And by the way, this does tie into critical race theory. The book that I'm reading is about, I'm not going to give too much away, but it is about the idea of whether we should have the legal system punish people for using racial slurs or engaging in racial hate speech. And beyond just civil charges, by the way. Like, these people are hardcore with it. Like, you guys think you know what's wrong with critical race theory? You got to go deeper. It's bad. But I need to finish that book so I can talk about it more. But very interesting stuff. But it's all part and parcel with the hard left's approach to free speech. Now, this doesn't apply to liberals. This doesn't apply to rank and file people who happen to vote Democrat. Most of them will be okay with the message. They might think it's stupid, but at the same time, I think their messages are stupid. I still think that they should be able to say them. So that's what we're dealing with here, and I think we need to watch out for this. I want to follow this case more to see how it ends up. But again, if this can happen in DC, it can happen anywhere, and I suspect that it probably already has. I wouldn't be surprised to hear about a conservative group in Minneapolis who wanted to do their own protest or do their own message, and they were shut down by the local government because it doesn't jibe with progressivism. So what do you guys think of this? Racer Dave, Alinsky first rule: power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. This is true. I don't know if that's a response to what I was saying about the left not having as much power as it seems, but it applies because we think that the left has a lot more power than they do, and it is allowing them to pursue their agenda. I'm glad you brought that quote up. I'm going to have to maybe do something on that. Let's see. They are for defunding police, but will advocate for the same police to arrest people for not wearing masks or taking the juice. That's true. They're not against the police. They just want the police to do what they want them to do. And again, I'm talking about the far left because I think that people on just regular on the left, they want reform of police. They don't want to get rid of them. What else we got? Where is the ACLU? What a wonderful question. What a beautiful question. Where is the ACLU? Nowhere to be found. Now, I will give the ACLU credit sometimes because there are times where they get it right. Like they came out against Joe Biden pressuring Facebook to censor more. But they tend to sacrifice their principles when it comes to the political agenda that they want. It's very disappointing because they are not who they say they are. They don't apply the principles consistently. I have a friend that's going to work for them, actually. Not on this stuff, but more on criminal justice. And I was teasing her, oh, so you become a commie now, huh? Is that what's going on? But yeah, it's not, I mean, they've got some great people there, and then they've got some not so great people there. It's hit or miss. Sometimes they get it right. Lately, most of the time, they're not, though. Yeah, ACLU is an accomplice. Pretty much. Didn't Austin have this similar problem with religious monuments? They got so preposterous that they ended up banning all monuments on the Capitol grounds. I don't remember that. That might have been before I got here. Let's see. DC, I wonder what would be the reaction, what the reaction would be if it was anti-LGBT message. They would not have made it to the silo. No, they wouldn't have. Nope, they wouldn't have. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I've got some other things to do. I'm going to be on with Jamil Giovanni, who's an awesome radio talk show host. He's in Canada, actually, but he has me on every week. So thanks for coming. Please, again, like and share and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That's only 4 clicks. It'll help me out immensely. But until next time, keep your minds free.